So, Mr. Bill Hayward, welcome to Rep Talk.
Well, thank you. Good to be here.
I'm so happy to have you on today. I have to say, first and foremost, you've been an inspiration to me. I recently discovered you maybe about 2 months ago through another coworker that I worked with that turned me on to Hayward Score. I had to check it out, and I've been a heating and air conditioning and indoor air quality person my whole life, and you are, in fact, I have to just, you've been inspirational, and that's truly what I love about what your story, and just wanted to share this newfound inspiration with our listeners. So thank you for being here.
Awesome.
Um, your story and your experience, honestly, is most likely going to resonate with many people, and actually many people that don't even realize it yet, probably, that have gone through some things that you've gone through, and which is even more inspiring because you actually took action, right, based on your experience, and you've taken action to actually go out and create a knowledge base and create, something for the average homeowner, house dweller to think about and give them a tool. So let's just start right. So tell us what the Hayward Score is.
Yeah. Okay. So the Hayward Score really uses my experience with the Forest Stewardship Council, which is the standard for sustainable, well-managed forestry. And it was a way to harness consumer demand to change markets. So after I got sick in a house, and that's really what happened to me, is I got sick in a house I was living in Pebble Beach. I thought, wow, this is a major problem, this issue of unhealthy homes. I mean, the EPA quickly told us that half the homes in America had an indoor air quality problem that's affecting our health. And my personal experience with thousands of builders told me most buildings that we were building ended up that way. So I thought, wow, this is an opportunity to change the way we build. It's get builders out from under liability and teach homeowners about how to create healthy homes. So we used this consumer demand idea and created the Hayward Score. So think the J.D. Power safety score for cars. When there was a number and a score, mothers started saying, wait a minute, I'm not going to buy a minivan with a safety score of a 5. I want a 9. So that was the idea. Could we score homes? Now, from idea to concept was 3 years. It took us 3 years to build the algorithms, to do the math. We began with WOOFY, which is a hydrothermal modeling program, and then we had to build out a whole set of tools to this simple consumer-facing idea. So if you go online and you answer approximately 50 questions about your house, there's almost 300, but you'll see about 50. It will diagnose your house. It will tell you if it's impacting your health, and it will tell you how to fix it based on the climate you live in. Imagine that, climate-specific building practices. We track 23 medical symptoms. So in addition to gathering all this information, we track 23 medical symptoms. As of now, we've scored 80,000 homes in America.
Oh, wow.
So our database is the largest database on homes and health ever assembled. It correlates, these are self-reported symptoms, but we can really now see, or I like to say it has revealed the truth about health and housing. We can see under what conditions: lack of ventilation, proximity to pollution, a lot of people in the house steaming and showering, not running bath fans, i.e. moisture loading. We can see where air conditioning systems are cycling too often and not dehumidifying, and what the health effects are. What the health effects are with leaks, damp, wet basements, near freeways. Carpet from the 70s near freeways turns out to be a really health degrading combination.
Wow, what an incredible database. And honestly, what you just mentioned too, the fact that half of our homes are affected by these variables, right?
Yeah.
And this database is just an incredible database. And I went through and did the questionnaire myself. It doesn't take very long for all of you out there that want to try it. It makes you think as you're going through these questions. You're like, wow, I never even thought about that aspect of this.
We like to call it a journey of guided discovery. We had to make it interesting to the consumer. And we succeeded because the consumer spends 15 minutes filling this thing out, right?
Mm-hmm.
So the consumer's experience is, oh, wow, I never thought about that with my house. Now I'm starting to think about my house as a system, and it goes through, here's why running bath fans is important. Here's internal moisture. Here's chemical storage. Here's outdoor pollutants. Here's how all these things interact in your house. So the consumer typically comes away feeling knowledgeable, and they've now discovered why their house is impacting their health, and they are vested now in making a decision to actually improve it because they get it.
It's an enlightenment. It really is. And honestly, couple that with the facts that the average citizen doesn't realize how much time they actually spend in their house, right? It's literally over 90% of their entire life is in their home. It's probably more so this past year, but it's incredible. And yeah, it's an absolutely incredible database. So this data, what do you actually do with the data? You said over 80,000 homes. Tell me a little bit about the data that you collect.
The question set that we have now is really what I call our research question set. We needed to develop enough data to really see and understand where homes impact. And one of the most interesting things we found is that about 30 to 40% of what makes a home healthy or not are what we call healthy home habits.
There's 5 of them, right?
Yeah, a house can be built really well, and it might have an HRV, ERV system, continuous fresh air, which is one of the principles of healthy home. But if the sources of the occupants is too high, it will overcome the house. Okay, so we know that with cigarette smoker, the habits lay down on the walls in layers. It becomes obvious if somebody was smoking. But whatever you're doing, cooking, steaming, showering, lots of cats and dogs, that is literally laying down in layers on the walls. It's flavoring the walls. And over time, all the air is bouncing off what's on the walls. And that starts to just degrade the house. So habits become something that are inexpensive to change. Oh, run the range hood. Oh, gosh, with 3 pets, I should be vacuuming 3 times a week, not once. These are things that people can change. And what we like to say is each little change matters, because what people do is they report back to us that I got my score. You recommended these 4 things. I did 3 of them, and now I'm reporting 2 less symptoms. And we see that. We have thousands of responses of people actually intervening in their home, either through habits or actually tearing carpet out and putting hardwood floor in, or changing out their HVAC, or adding an HRV, ERV. And they talk about how many symptoms go away. And it's just stunning to see the difference. They also tell us on the symptoms, they tell us if they're mild, moderate, or severe, so 23 symptoms. And then they tell us, does it go away when you leave the house? And when we show the number of symptoms that people say, these literally go away when I leave the house in the morning, and they come back when I come back home, blows the medical community away. I mean, it really is stunning how much homes impact our health.
That's really interesting that you say that, because commercially speaking, we call that sick building syndrome, right? You go to work, you feel terrible, and you come home, you feel okay. It's truly amazing that that the environment, the built environment, has that effect on all of us. Honestly, you're giving me a lot of new material, by the way. This is even more encouraging because we paint our homes. I love this. It's wonderful to hear you put it in these terms, because we all get stuck in our rut on this side of the business in HVAC saying certain things, but this is truly an enlightenment, and by virtue of sharing this is awesome. So the 5, these are actually, when you say habits, I love that, because it's these little things that could be done honestly in our everyday life. And me, growing up with asthma and allergies myself, I know that carpeting and a lot of upholstery type things can hold on to allergens. So if you get an allergy sufferer, if you tend not to have more carpets and more hardwoods, that's a good thing, right? So
Yeah.
these little habits. I think one of the things I read was running your bath fan for 20 minutes after the shower.
It does take a fair amount of time to dissipate the moisture, which is why an HRV, ERV, which is running continuously, does such a good job at managing and mitigating moisture problems in a house.
So I always say when we're training and talking about IQ and our end, fresh air is highly underrated, isn't it? I mean, the fact that we live in these structures, we've sealed them all up to the nth degree for purposes of efficiency, right? And tightening everything up. And look what we've done to our own selves. So one of the videos you actually produced that I got a kick out of recently, and I think it was this past year, was crack your window a half an inch, let the fresh air in.
When COVID hit, we immediately recognized everybody would be home, and more family members home, and trying to study and try to go to school and working from home. And wow, just cracking the air makes such a difference with anxiety, depression. And if you're staying home now in a house that's already, say, a low Hayward score, you're going to have a lot more health symptoms manifest. And just cracking the window is a low-cost tool. So one of the things we also do is 40% of our users are renters.
Okay.
And trying to be thoughtful, we had to create low-cost solutions that we call transportable, portable, and affordable, because renters aren't necessarily going to get a landlord to make a big change,
right?
And things that they can take with them to the next unit or install on a temporary basis make a real difference.
Yeah, that's key too. I always think about the folks that are renters or for economic reasons can't afford some of the solutions. There are still things that they can do. And that's why I really appreciated you saying the cracking the window and fresh air. I mean, I live in a northern climate in upstate New York here, and I do tend to air my house out, even though it's really cold outside, every once in a while to just air out the house. So your background, you had a family business in the lumber industry, correct? For
Yeah, so my background, for 28 years, I've run a chain of lumber yards up and down the central coast of California called Hayward Lumber. And that's really how I got my start is servicing builders and taking care of builders building largely residential homes. In the process, I observed bad waterproofing, for building science. I discovered building scientists, and I became a building scientist. So that was really interesting, my quest to help builders build better homes. And then my wife and I bought a house in Pebble Beach, and we got sick. And when I say sick, I'll just briefly go into it, but literally we'd start to run the heat in September, October, and we'd start to sneeze and cough and sneeze, and then we were tired, and really tired. My wife's a psychologist, 2 masters and a PhD, and we just blamed it on a new baby, because who's not tired with a new baby?
mm-hmm.
But by Christmas, I literally couldn't hold a 10-digit phone number in my head long enough to dial it. And I was falling asleep in management meetings. My management team didn't know what to do with me. My board didn't. I couldn't think clearly. I was forgetting words. I was depressed. Adriana could no longer get pregnant. And my child had green stuff coming out her nose.
Wow.
So we're like, what do we do? We tested the house. And I will never forget getting the test back. And the guy says, well, there's not a lot of mold in the house, but the crawl space has a lot of mold. Don't worry about it, because you don't live in the crawl space. So I was enough of a building scientist at that point to go, okay, this guy doesn't know what he's talking about. If it's in the crawl space, it's in my house. It turns out if it's in the garage, it's in your house, right?
Wow. Yeah.
So we moved out and suddenly started to get better. It took us 3 years to kind of go from deeply sensitive, because we've been in it a year and a half.
Mm-hmm.
And that's when we came up with the idea of the principle of the healthy home. First to help our builders, because 90% of construction defect litigation is over waterproofing. And over half the waterproofing in our markets is being done wrong. So I thought, well, builders are getting sued to come up with these principles: continuous fresh air, properly sealed and insulated, less toxic materials, cleanable surfaces, and now we've added healthy home habits as a way to introduce builders to the concept, because there was no kind of K through 12 program to introduce the construction community to unhealthy homes. There was LEED, there was Living Building Challenge, there were very sophisticated high level, but we needed to get all builders and homeowners kind of off the ground into the healthy home discussion. And so that was the concept of Hayward Score: is let's use PhD level tools, but introduce it from entry level right up through high school, and then you go on to college for Living Building Challenge and some of the others. So that's kind of a unique background for a guy in the lumber business who's now spent the last 6 years really becoming a leader in indoor air quality and homes.
Yeah, it came out of an unfortunate situation. And actually, what I was thinking about when I heard your story originally was, how long did you actually put up with the symptoms for? So you lived in the house for about a year and a half? Is that about?
Yeah.
Okay. And in that time, did you actually have? I mean, this is my own curiosity from our trade. Did you have a heating and air conditioning professional come in and look at the system, kind of evaluate it that way as well, or at some point did you address? Okay.
I mean, so this is 08, 09, right? Kind of the infancy of this whole space, and I had the local mold expert come, and the home homogenization guys wanted to do the crawl space, which we let them, and then it got worse. And we had fans in the crawl space, and that actually just turns out to make the problem worse in a humid climate. And so there were just many well-meaning contractors who didn't understand homes as systems trying to help. There were also predatory contractors who couldn't wait to get a big check to try and solve the problem. And I was so frustrated because, I mean, unusually, I could afford to move, right? I could afford whatever. And my wife's a psychologist. We couldn't get out of our own way. We were so depressed. We were so tired. We were so overwhelmed. We felt victims to people who didn't understand how to fix it. And so out of that experience, we thought, we actually have the tools to fix this and figure it out. And let's do that so that those solutions become available to everybody in America, no matter what your economics are, and try to change this across America. And that was really our goal with Hayward Score.
So in your experience, it's just fascinating because you're right. Not many people could afford to leave a house, but from our trade standpoint, from the heating and air conditioning trade, it's kind of, most guys learn through doing and learn from the people around them in the trade. And you go through it in any typical HVAC school, you do not find an indoor air quality, chapter in any of the traditional training that you have either. And that's kind of our purpose here too, to expand that knowledge base. But I think you hit it on the head. I really liked what you said earlier, and that was the Hayward Score actually helps everybody in the process, really, all the trades, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
By virtue of where the rubber meets the road in the home itself with the homeowner, and it shows value in the parameters that help everybody understand. So how does the Hayward Score help a heating and air conditioning contractor?
So I think whether you're a building contractor, heating and air conditioning contractor, there's a level of distrust of the average consumer with the trades, right? What are they trying to sell me? And when you have an unhealthy home, you experience one of three things. You're either positive affirmation, negative affirmation, oh, it's in your head. Homes don't make people sick, which drives people who are not doing well in their home crazy. Oh, yes, you have a problem and it's going to cost a lot and I can fix it. Predatory affirmation. And what they need is positive affirmation, right? Yes. So they can get their Hayward Score in the privacy of their own home before you come to visit. You can suggest they get it. It's free, by the way. It's free. They fill it out, they get it, then write the scope of work and suggest these are the things causing a problem. And that scope of work includes ventilation, dehumidification, humidification, changing bath fans, and then fixing moisture and those kinds of things, right? But it's a scope of work. It comes from this independent, trusted resource that didn't try to sell them anything. So now, when you come in the living room and you suggest that they get their Hayward Score prior, they're kind of vested. They understand their house and they know that they want a solution that's going to solve it. So if you actually are a rep and you understand the principles of a healthy home and you're trying to sell the right tools, you're now solving their problem and they're trusting you. So it builds trust. That's, I think, the most important thing to do.
I think you hit the nail on the head. It's third-party validation. That's what we all talk about too. When the last person we want to be is a snake oil guy, right? Or sell you something that you don't need, and that truly is an excellent resource. So if you're in the building trades too, like in your side of the world, so what is there for builders? What resource exists for builders to go to actually become a healthy home builder? Is there a council or what groups exist for those guys to become involved or
so there's the National Center for Healthy Homes. There's the Harvard Healthy Building Principles that they've been developing for years. Those are, wonderfully done. Inside the Hayward Score website is a complete list of the steps to build healthy homes. And when you get a Hayward Score, if you have a damp wet basement, there's a basement action plan. If it's suggesting more ventilation, there's a 12-page ventilation action plan. I mean, literally, the whole resource is inside the Hayward Score. We also have launched through Joe Madosh, our healthy building scientist, a retained consulting process to help builders move a project to healthy home. And we'll only do that with somebody who commits to a year, because what we know is that until you spend time doing it and actually get through your first one, it's a challenge. But once you get through your first one, you figure out how to do it on a cost-effective basis. There's also on the Hayward Score website what we call Upgrade to Health, or 12 steps to a healthy home. And they're the 12 essential steps that you use to take a code home and make it healthy. It even suggests how much that costs. And unlike a lot of recommendations, we used data from 80,000 homes to identify the lowest cost intervention with the highest efficacy, so that we could make healthy home affordable. Now, I'm living in a healthy home. This room is a healthy home, Hayward Healthy Home 1. I'm building another one. And we did everything that we understood possible to make it healthy. And I can tell you that costs a lot. So what we wanted to do is isolate those steps that get you mostly there, or at least the most efficacy for the least amount of money to make it affordable. And, everybody's like, oh, I don't think that's probably affordable. I mean, it must be a lot. Well, it turns out it's less than $10,000 on an affordable level construction project at the 2,500 square foot size. And others will say, I don't know, it's not in the budget. Habitat for Humanity is doing it.
Wow.
They are really budget conscious. And they're doing it because they took the time to understand how homes work as a system. And when you think about how homes work as a system and you put in ventilation and you tighten the house a lot, right? And you put the right U value in the window, now you can calculate the energy consumption and you can cut the HVAC system down to a much smaller system. Now, before you panic, HVAC contractors, you're selling a smaller system. Yes, but you're also adding an ERV. So the money's going back into ERV, dehumidification, humidification, filtration, which is with filtration media, right? Based on your proximity to outdoor pollutions. The money is going back into the system in a way that provides a healthier indoor environment and a system that's going to work better, right? It's now sized in an envelope that's airtight, so it's easier to ensure the performance. It's easier to ensure that the air conditioning isn't oversized and cycling and not dehumidifying. This is all good for the HVAC contractor. Right. And the homeowner now is asking you for it. Like, I want those things. That's not an expert trying to tell me. I now understand it's essential to create a comfortable, healthy indoor environment.
Again, it's fascinating to hear you talk because you literally can do this from the foundation up, because many of us are challenged on this side of the business with everything that's already been built and the problems are already there, like you experienced with your house. And then how do you fix it from this end? Well, HRVs, ERVs are one way if you can afford it. The solutions are there, but I love the approach, your approach to from the very beginning, even before we build. Here's how we can do this. For years with we've had several decades of time of tightening everything up, right? And then we're left with sickness, which can be helped. And I can't say enough about the HaywardScore.com website, because there is, like you mentioned, the videos on there are absolutely terrific. All the steps and outlines. It's a plethora of information, honestly. And thank you for putting all that together. I actually, when I do talk now, I actually borrow some of your terms that you use, like our home is a container of health. I give you due credit, by the way, too. I always mention you wherever I speak. And
thank you.
Yeah, no, you've come up with some great some lines and terms I think people can relate to. And our home is a container of harm is one of them. And your TED Talk I found truly fascinating as well, how you laid that out in that 17 minutes. If you haven't seen Bill Hayward's TED Talk, please watch it. There's actually a link to it on the HaywardScore.com. Bill, enlighten us on the what we need to survive. I love how you put the 3 meals a day, 8 glasses of water, and then the punchline. Tell us, I think it's just fascinating to hear you say, what we actually need to survive.
Yeah, so the essentials of life, turns out, are core in our home, where we spend 90% of our time, right? So it's an interesting thing about air. When we think about the essentials, sleep, food, shelter, water, and air, we eat 3 meals a day, right? If you don't like one of those meals, you can pass. 8 glasses of water, but if one doesn't look good, you can pass. We breathe 23,000 breaths a day. Try passing on your next breath. It's not an option. And by this, we are hardwired to think we don't have a choice about our air. If we think about it, it's the last frontier that the building code has addressed. We sort of thought we didn't have a choice. Well, here's the deal. We now understand that 60% of health and longevity is driven by environmental exposures. We used to think it was your DNA, exercise, and diet, but we now understand environmental exposures. Well, environmental exposures, they're out there, right? No, because we spend 90% of our time indoors, and environmental exposures are coming through the walls or in the chemicals in the house or the building materials or outdoor pollutants leaking in, it's indoors. We are exposed indoors, and most importantly, that's where we sleep. And if we sleep under assault, in other words, there's a bunch of dust in the HVAC system, there's dust mites in the pillows, there's mold in the crawl space, There's chemicals under the bed. It's impacting our sleep. It's impacting our ability to, the body to cleanse, because at night we want to clean the chemicals out of the brain. The process that we go through is the brainwaves change, and we want to kind of reorganize our immune system. Well, none of that really happens if you're under assault, which leads to inflammation and long-term illness. And that all happens indoors. So guess what? The home is infinitely actionable because you just change the air tightness, filter the air, clean up the air filtration, and if there's a damp, wet problem, fix it, right? And you as an HVAC contractor, you're the guy. We're the industry that will be the beneficiary of America's understanding that homes impact health.
Thank you. Right? That's what it's like, right? Yeah. Very profound. I'll tell you, I'm going to read an expert from that really left a mark in my thought process. And here's a little excerpt from your TED Talk. If we made all homes healthy, they would become energy efficient. If they become energy efficient, we would solve 1/3 of the world's global carbon footprint. If all homes were healthy, we would save $700 billion in U.S. healthcare system per year. If homes were healthy, they would the demand for unhealthy products and chemicals would disappear. I mean, that's just amazing, honestly, Bill, to think about that. That's a lot packed into what you said there, and it took me a while to kind of unpack that. And when all said and done, I think your point towards the end was each of us have the power of choice, right? Talk about that for a second.
Yeah, so we can exercise our choice, just like I said, when you think about environmental pollutants are out there, oh, it's all going to kill me. What am I going to do about it? Well, it's my house. If I change my house, I can change my health. And it's not like I have to go exercise on the exercise bike every day. Once I get this fantastic HVAC system in and I fix the moisture problem and I'm using a HEPA vacuum, it's doing it for me every day. And so it is actionable. It is a choice that we can make. Harvard, the team at Harvard, Joe Allen, just finished a book called Healthy Buildings. And the premise is your building manager has more to do with your long-term health than your doctor. All our data tells us that to be true. And as we think about where you're really spending your time, it's not the building you work in, it's your home. So the home has more to do with your long-term health than your doctor. And the HVAC industry has a great deal to do with the health of the indoor air.
Well, thank you for leading by example, Bill, because you've given us a lot to think about, and we can lead the way, and it is inspiring. And by the way, you're going to laugh at me, but guess that's what I just got. That's my latest edition. Haven't read it yet. I just got it last week, so it's coming. But Dr. Allen is a must
read. Yep. Joe is really he is one of the most articulate people about how these concepts work, and it was co-authored with the dean of the business school, so they actually include the business case. And from my TED Talk as well, the point about including the business case is when business leaders grasp the compelling economic opportunities of health and sustainability, they can move more resources and more people than government and nonprofit can ever dream of. So as the HVAC industry comes to understand, we are the home doctors, right? And customers, because what we've discovered is 60-70% of all homeowners would like to live in a healthy home, but it's not sure they can afford it. Well, your customer is primarily the person that can write a check, and if some of the big manufacturers decide to finance it, now they can afford it, right? That's going to change the industry, the understanding. And here we are in COVID, right? So we have this understanding, and suddenly COVID hit, and we have an accelerating moment. Because we're going to leave this time of COVID, and we will never forget what's on our elevator button, which turns out not to be so important, and what's in our air. We will never forget what's in our air. So the idea of what's in indoor air, outdoor air, what we're sharing, what we're breathing in our schools, it will never go away. And this, I believe, will accelerate this transition towards healthy, durable, and energy-efficient housing. And the last point in my making the TED Talk, you know, I've worked in sustainability for a long time. Big ideas, sustainable change only appeal to 15% of the population, right? I'm gonna buy wood because it comes from a sustainable forest. But 60%, my family, my health, me, show me how to do that, I'm in. And that's the kind of urgency and excitement we need to change markets. And that's the kind of excitement that can actually change the energy consumption and the energy footprint of existing housing. Because it's not new housing. It's the 130 million existing homes in America that are consuming all the energy. And every person there would like to consume less and have more to enjoy with their family.
Very well said. And honestly, very well said. We preach on our end to our HVAC constituents in this side of the trade is changing the narrative. And you just alluded to that. We're changing the narrative. We have to change the narrative, especially after this year. You know, for years as a trade, we led our conversations go in for a quote or a change out, a system change out or an upgrade. You're talking efficiency. You're talking about product features and benefits, right? Like, you guys, we got to flip this around. You need to lead those conversations with health. Ask the healthy questions, because this HVAC system, like you're saying, Bill, it all ties together. It's part of a system and a bigger system of the house. And I love the way you say it. It's very eloquent, by the way. It rings true, and I appreciate the way you say that. So yeah, I think we've forever changed, haven't we, since this past year? And you think about prior to this year, Bill, how much attention water always got.
Yeah.
It's just crazy. All these years, and for our lives, literally water got all the attention, but you can't see.
And then it turns out we read the studies on what's in the bottled water, and in many cases, it's worse than what's coming in our tap. So one of the principles of healthy home is filtered water. I mean, it's air and water, both very important. So I'm sitting in the first Hayward Healthy Home. It was finished in November of 14, and I've had 4 years to live in it, tons of data. I've got fortune of air quality information. But the most important data is this. Before COVID, I toured 40 couples who were building $1 million to $20 million homes. We have a lucrative market here. And I had to learn to describe the concept of healthy home in a way that would compete with walk-in closets, new appliances, granite countertops, and the standard features that are competing for the homeowner's attention, right? Same thing in a remodel. New furnace is not competing for the homeowner's attention. And I guarantee air tightness is not competing for the homeowner's attention. So if you were to come in the house, what I've learned now is when a couple walks in and say, there are 3 things you're going to experience in this home you've never experienced in a traditionally built home. The first is it's peacefully quiet. Second, full of healthy, fresh air. 1 temperature. And now I say, no dust. Invariably, the couples, 90% of them fall in love with peacefully quiet. Okay, well, how does that work? You can see on Ocean Avenue in Carmel the trucks going up and down the street. You may see them going by right now, but you can't hear them. And peacefully quiet comes from extreme air tightness. It's cheap. But when you have extreme air tightness, the HVAC system works a whole lot better, and it's not having to dehumidify as much. So really good, right? The homeowner's like, I want that peacefully quiet thing. And then you talk about the dust, and I'll look at the sunlight through the window. You see the dust and the sunlight? And they're like, no, I don't see any. Exactly. This house doesn't have, you mean it's cleaner? Wow, how do I get that? And if a couple has allergies or asthma, they'll say within about 20 minutes, you know, I don't feel my allergies in your house. How is that possible? And those are all customers that want to stick with a healthy home process, right? They are now vested. They want to know how you get it. And they're shocked to find out air tightness is $4,000 or $5,000 worth of tape, right? Not expensive windows. It's simply going back in and tightening up the envelope. And they love the idea of continuous fresh air with filtration. So, you know, as an HVAC contractor, in the perfect world, you get to put an HRV, ERV in, but you can get there with a bath fan strategy, and you can get there with controlled air inlets as opposed to random leaking air inlets, and you can put filtration into it. There's different budget methods to get to levels of healthy home. What you have to do is learn how to sell the value in a way that the consumer loves. And those are values they love, right? Oh, you mean my baby's crawling on the floor and they're not in colds and drafts? Oh, there's not dust all over the place? You ever talk to production builders and people who live in production housing? The biggest complaint is, I dust, I clean, I dust, and it fills up with dust again.
Again, right. That's Fascinating, absolutely fascinating, and it truly is helpful on our end to hear you say all this. So with that, I did get an 80% on my score, so I got a few things I got to address. Honestly, the dirt crawl space is
Great.
the most difficult one, and I know my kitchen exhaust fan does not exhaust to the outdoors, so I know I'm recirculating a lot of bad stuff, and I know that. I know what I'm doing. It's just eventually get around to that or move, right? Fixing those things or move. But so given that, one last question for you: are you still planning on cracking your window this Thanksgiving?
So that's a funny thing, right? It's kind of a loaded question. Absolutely. I have an HRV, ERV system in this house that runs at 0.5 ACH or one air change every 2 hours. ASHRAE wants you to be at 0.33. Absolutely not. Too low, 0.5.
Right.
And I know that from 4 years of data because the CO2 builds up too high in this house without that, right? The office I'm in right now is used to be my kids' room. And I can work in here with the windows closed and the HRV working. But my previous office, which was my wife, it's a smaller room, and the CO2 goes to 800 at 0.5. So we've learned a lot about really what you need and airflow by room. It's a precision game, right down to 5 CFM matter. But yeah, if we've got people around and the outdoor air is nice, bring that outdoor air in. And the last thing I'll say about outdoor air is, actually, it's not healthy to leave the house closed up all the time. You know, you mentioned kind of discipline. The Germans know that 10 minutes out of every hour you open windows. And if you're in Germany, they do that. So it's surprising. Even in the winter, you'll see them open close. We don't do that. We rely on HVAC.
I did not know that.
To keep the home healthy, you want to at least once a week open the doors and windows, open the cabinets, and let outdoor air in on a day where outdoor air is clean, because it has some beautiful natural microbiome. And we need to reinvigorate the indoor microbiome with the out, balance it. Because just like when the gut microbiome gets out of balance, people get sick, same thing happens in the house. And so the ancient practice of spring cleaning, which was of course to get rid of the rat and the mouse that was in the closet, was also to take the blankets out and the material out and the couches out and clean it and bring it back in. And I know everybody's done that at least once in their life. And that night you're like, God, I slept so well. It just felt so fresh. So that is one of the healthy home habits that actually makes a big difference and doesn't cost a lot to do.
It doesn't, and I'm laughing here because I haven't been traveling for the past 8 months, which I normally do. So I grabbed a shirt out of the closet. As soon as I put the shirt on, it's been in my closet untouched for since last February. I start sneezing. I'm like, you got to be kidding me. I should have taken it outside, just like you said, and shaken it off. Great points, Bill. Great.
And reinvigorate that closet.
Yep. You're absolutely right. That makes me.
So by the way, in our healthy home design, when we put an HRV or ERV in the house, we suggest an additional exhaust in every closet, 3-4 CFM, every storage space, and the space underneath the kitchen counter where you store your chemicals. And that goes a long way to creating healthier indoor environments.
That makes a ton of sense. How logical that is, honestly, how logical that is. So we got to get there. This is our journey. We're going to get there eventually. We're going to educate the masses, and by virtue of being here, hopefully we can reach some more folks. And for those that don't have the initial means here to make changes, just listen. Go to haywardscore.com. Check out Bill's baby, if you will, and what he's created and all the resources available to you there. So Bill, thank you very much for joining us today. We certainly appreciate your time, and it's been very enlightening, and look forward to hopefully catching up with you again some point in the future and see how things evolve here. Thank you.
Thank you very much. It was great to share the story and get excited about what this will do for the HVAC industry, because the HVAC industry is really the beneficiary of the national understanding that homes impact people's health.
Thank you, Bill. Appreciate that.